All right, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to IGTV. With us is our weekly editorial with William H. Murray. And Bill has been talking about kind of like the three legs of infrastructure protection here, all right? And this is the last leg, I believe, which is trust as a part of infrastructure. All right, Bill, why don't you take it away and bring us down this part of the road?
Very good. At an RSA Conference in 1997, Jim Barksdale, then CEO of Netscape and later FedEx, pointed out that if airline safety had remained constant at 1937 levels, the year the DC-3 came online, and traffic had risen to 1997 levels, the year in which he was talking, we would be killing people at the rate of 2 747s per day. He then asked, "Would you fly?" His point was not simply that there is an essential level of safety for the acceptance and use of a technology, but that there is a necessary level of public trust and confidence that must be sustained. Damage that trust and confidence, and the technology will not be used. Moreover, public trust and confidence is fragile and difficult to sustain. My favorite example is atomic energy. In the late 40s and early 50s, proponents of atomic power argued that it would be too cheap to meter. It did prove to be more expensive than that, in large part because of safety. But that's not the reason that we do not use more of it. It is not that it is not safe, or even that its safety is difficult to measure. We continue to burn fossil fuel, though they are far more dangerous than atomic energy, and we count the bodies in hundreds per year. Rather, it is that 3 Mile Island destroyed the necessary public trust and confidence. 3 decades later, we still have not succeeded in repairing it. We were getting close when a once-in-a-thousand-year event took place at Fukushima in Japan. As a result, Germany, that gets 23% of its energy from nuclear power, shut down 6 plants and then announced that it will decommission all of its plants over the next decade. While Germany asserts that it can do this while becoming an energy exporter and reducing its carbon emissions, result of this decision is at least arguably disproportionate, is that the use of fossil fuels will increase. Now, I have argued that information technology is different in this respect. First, the public does not see IT as being intrinsically dangerous, as energy or transportation. Second, because just as they feel safer in an automobile than on an airplane, they feel safer in IT, in part because, as in the automobile, they enjoy some local control. We get a pass that we did not earn. That said, both the government and the media clearly believe that the public is too complacent about IT. Every breach or compromise is widely reported. Both vulnerability and threat are expressed in hyperbolic, not to say alarming terms like cyber war and even cyber Pearl Harbor. While electronic transactions are demonstrably safer than the same transactions in paper, activity like identity theft, that incidentally originates mostly in paper, is blamed on IT. Security and safety are used to resist efficient, not to say necessary and urgent, automation of paper healthcare records. While the U.S. spends more on international intelligence gathering than the rest of the world combined, activity of others is viewed with alarm, and both capability and motive are inferred. On the other hand, the financial condition of small business, nonprofits, and municipalities is being damaged by fraudulent use of their online banking credentials. We continue to use Mag, Stripe, and PIN for retail payments, an application for which they were never intended and clearly are not safe. We are spending billions of dollars per year to resist spam and malicious code. The software industry continues to ship code with implementation-induced vulnerabilities, doing it over and over rather than doing it right the first time. Safe software is no more difficult than safe airliners. They simply do a better job. The number of records reported breached exceeds the number of people. That means that some of us have to be being breached multiple times. There is a consensus that controls between the public networks and other infrastructure make those controls vulnerable to misuse and abuse. Can you say SCADA? All these things erode public trust and confidence. Since we do not know where the breaking point is, we need to err on the safe side. I do not expect a total meltdown like 3 Mile Island, pun intended. Rather, I expect that the use of IT will be resisted at the margins, used less than might be efficient. Healthcare is the poster child for this concern. While it is true that the organization of this industry makes automating it difficult, security and safety concerns, the public's lack of trust, have made it nigh impossible. Those responsible for automating it know that at least part of the public is fearful and would prefer that they fail in their attempts to automate. Let me return to Jim Barksdale's analogy to aviation. Like the computer, the airplane began as an expensive toy for a few. They even had their hackers, amateurs, who learned by experimentation, those who pushed the envelope of performance, safety, and ethics. As the computer grew up to be information technology, the plane grew up to be aviation. Boy, did it grow up. My colleague, Dr. Peter Tippett, suggests that in the 60 years from 1937 to 1997, aviation safety improved 1,000-fold. Planes are 10 times safer than in 1937. Even those DC-3s still operating, and yes, there are some, are 10 times safer. We got another 10-fold improvement from better flight procedures and pilot training. Peter says, think checklist. A 1937 pilot would say, real pilots don't use checklists. Those are for wusses. A 1997 pilot would say, all pilots, professional or amateur, use checklists. One might call this professionalization. After only 50 years, our hardware and software now have the controls that we need to resist leakage, preserve integrity, and provide transparency and accountability. Even though our professional associations develop and publish checklists, we are not as professional at using these controls as their existence would suggest. Finally, we got a 10-fold improvement from timely reporting and sharing of intelligence. From weather to navigation, to traffic, to maintenance, to accident reports. We have a formal system in place in aviation, not only for sharing, but in some cases to ensure the receipt and compliance with necessary intelligence. In part because we do not trust one another, and particularly because we do not trust government, in information assurance, we do not share well and question much of what we see. I confess that I admire the air transport industry. I look to them when people tell me how difficult safe and secure IT is. I hold up their performance as a standard to which we should aspire. We should emulate engineering that produces planes that can be operated safely. Note that in aviation, safety does not yield to schedule or even to profit. Think Boeing 787 and the 3-year slip. We should emulate their training, experience, and professionalism, from pilots to mechanics to those who serve our comfort and safety in the cabin. They have earned and they conserve our trust and confidence. We should emulate their collection and use of timely intelligence, a use which manages to get safety-critical information to everyone that can use it while not unnecessarily alarming the public. As in efficiency, as in infrastructure, everything that we do or fail to do increases or decreases necessary public trust and confidence. Fragile confidence, maintained at a cost, and which, if broken, we may not be able to repair or replace. It is for this that we are called professionals and are paid the big bucks.
Well, Bill, thank you very, very much. I mean, that hits direct on a lot of points, and quite frankly, it also touches on something that I talk about a lot. And I talk about the maturity of the automobile industry. The first automobile didn't come with seat belts. It didn't come with, side impact cushions and front cushions and, all of these safety devices. We had to learn these things, and it took us years to do that. All right, years of experience, years of injury, and years of lawsuits and things of that nature. So to think information technology in 10 years is going to, go at light year speed, I don't think so. It's going to take time for the industry to mature, and as you say, to really develop professional standards. And I think you're absolutely right. The airline industry is a good comparison. All right, because those planes don't go anywhere unless they're safe.
One of my favorite movies was with Robert Redford about the early aviation industry. And what was it? Waldo Pepper, the great Waldo Pepper.
Okay.
And one of the things that comes in there is that at a certain point in the maturing of aviation, government decided that things were not going fast enough, and they stepped in. And they instituted the only really successful professional licensing program at the federal level. Even the Federal Communications licensing is not nearly so effective as the FAA. And I don't want to see government step in and begin to license IT professionals. But I have to tell you that if we don't clean up our act voluntarily, government will eventually step in and mandate it, because they understand the necessity of maintaining public trust and confidence.
You're 150% correct there. And that's one of the things, that we constantly espouse. The infrastructure is owned by arguably 95% of the private sector. All right, the number keeps going up and down depending upon who you're talking to. But clearly, we own a majority stake claim in this. And when I say we, I'm talking about the private sector. The government comes in as a law enforcement or other entity, all right, to clean it up later on and try and enforce some of the rules and regulations out there. But after a while, if the private sector doesn't put the rules and policies and procedures in place to protect it, then you're absolutely right. The government will be forced, politically and otherwise, to insert themselves into a discussion which is something that they really even shouldn't be in, all right, because they don't own it to begin with. They just have the responsibility at the end and have to weigh the people's decisions on just how bad it gets. All right, good talking with you. All right, and happy holidays, Bill.
Same to you. We're on for next Tuesday, right?
Yes, we are, sir.
Right after Christmas.
Right after Christmas.
and the Tuesday right after New Year's, we're going to be on too, huh?
Well, we'll have to see about that. We can always run some recordings.